Welcome back, everybody, to Trade Talk. This is episode 15. I'm your host, Niko. Thank you to everybody who tunes in and listens to this show. Here's me ramble about books that I've recently read and give reviews on them. Today I'm going to be talking about, again, this is another manga-themed episode. I've seemed to have read more of that over the past week. And then next week, when the show drops, it'll be the day after Halloween, and I'll be talking about some more kind of scary books, like more Halloween-themed, essentially more horror titles that I'm going to talk about next week to keep in line with Halloween that I've been reading. So first up we got Dr. Stone. I previously talked about Volume 1 a few episodes ago, the last time I had talked about manga, and I continued reading this. I read Volumes 2 to 7 after I had read that first volume in the last couple of weeks, and I ended up quite enjoying it. It was very formulaic. I wasn't sure if I was going to like it. After the first volume, it was a little bit of a slow start. But then, by that point, we set up a bad guy, and they had an objective in mind that basically the Dr. Stone character was going to wage a war against this other dude who they let out of the stone. They thought this guy was going to be a good person, a candidate to take out of the stone because he's like this strong dude, and he's very efficient in that sense, where Dr. Stone isn't. Like, he's just got his brains, where this guy had like this strength and determination to actually get things done. But then when they let him out, they found him smashing a bunch of rocks of people that were made of stone and essentially killing them because they didn't give him a chance to get them out of the rock. And then he basically was like, kind of like the alpha male, I need to round up like the strongest people that I know that are encased in this stone, and basically start up a civilization that way, like, of just the strongest people, like, around, basically. Like, so, the weak that would just hold them back, essentially, like, only the strong survive type of mindset, right? So like by volume 7, you see that he's already kind of building up his army of and going off and doing his thing. He tried to kill the main character, Dr. Stone, at one point, and he had to fool him into thinking that he had died. And then the main protagonist got separated. The two guys, Dr. Stone and his buddy, I forgot his name, that were like childhood friends. They got separated for a period of time while Dr. Stone went and started his own army. Well, like, I guess this, like, army of science or something he called it. And basically within the 7 volumes, you see him kind of get to the point where he advanced their technology so much on their end, and helped a group of people that he kind of came across on the other kind of side of the jungle or whatever, that they all kind of woke up in, and then slowly but surely he's kind of building up his own group of people to kind of overthrow that other dude. And he's just been basically just building up all their technology over there and trying to advance them. And he has some good warrior type people over there too, because I guess this was like a group of people that were already living in this stone age prior to him actually coming out of the stone. And up to that point, they thought maybe they were the first ones. But for whatever reason, you find out like these people were actually, there was a small bit of the human race that actually continued to live. Because his father, there's a whole backstory that you find out Dr. Stone's father, which, they fail to mention in the first few volumes. Afterwards, you find out, you get these flashbacks of his father. He went up into space, so they were in space when this wave that kind of made everybody encased in stone on the Earth hit. So they didn't get affected. So then they came back down to Earth because they were astronauts. So then when they came back down to Earth, they found that this had happened to the human race. And then basically they continued to have to live there after this had happened. And I guess, they some of the astronauts, I guess they procreated, I guess, some of the people that were with them and ended up having kids and so on and so on. And basically that was like that small village of people that he comes across that I guess have been living all these thousands of years. I guess there was a small group of people that ended up surviving, and that is what is left of the human race at this point when he's kind of comes out of the stone. So then he finds out, they find this kind of stuff out. I guess the reader knows before the characters do, but then you find out that his last name is connected to some almost like the Bible. Like I guess like his dad or whatever. Like there was like a bunch of stories that were told that were left for every generation, like kind of to pass on to the next one. Not like in the Bible. Like I just meant like it's like one of those old stories that kind of like people don't know whether or not it's real or not, and one of the his last name is like in some of the tales, so like they basically think that he's already told them that he was encased in stone and he came back, so now they kind of he ends up taking over the village, like being essentially their leader, and like so he's got like I guess royalty essentially in his blood, or like whatever. They're kind of, I wouldn't say they think of him as God, but they basically know that like he comes from from back then, and he's really well respected, and like I said, and they allow him through like this. Of course, there's some tournament that goes down like always in these shonen mangas that determines like who the new like king of the village is going to be essentially, and it's him. Even though he can't win by strength, he wins by using his his head, because he's this super smart character, and that's how he kind of goes throughout these stories. And it's very formulaic, because like everything that they address and everything they build using science is all actual like fact, like all things that you can actually do. So like the writer was saying he had to do a lot of research to actually continue to write these little scenarios for them to overcome and figure out as they advance the technology in their society in this book. So that I'm not always a fan of formulaic things like that, but it's actually always interesting to see how they're going to do it and how they're going to get themselves out of that next jam, and how they're going to figure it out using actual real life based things. It's not like some crazy comic book shit that they're just making up. Like it's actual science that they're using and demonstrating in the book. So it's really interesting that way. The art by, sorry, I didn't say, the story is by Richiro Inagaki, and I'm sure if I'm butchering these names, I apologize, and art by Boichi. The art's really good. I think the art's really enjoyable. I mean, it's, I guess more of your classic shonen manga style art. There's even some like kind of cheesecakey TNA type moments where some of the women in this are kind of really provocatively dressed, or the whole big boobs, small waist, kind of small girl type things. But the thing that's kind of weirded me out at times is because of the faces of these people, they look kind of like very childlike. So even though they're young girls, and they're trying to make them look cute, but again, maybe that's like a Japanese thing. So it's okay. It's fine to look at while you're reading the book, but sometimes you're kind of like, I don't know, this girl's pretty young here. So, or at least she looks it in the face, right? But her body does not match that. So, but yeah, it's pretty good. I like it. It's a very enjoyable read. Definitely check it out if you have not yet. The first couple of volumes are slow. It took me a little while to get into, to kind of get the rhythm of things, and kind of for the story advance, and kind of it's gone in a bunch of interesting different directions. But it's definitely, again, it's formulaic in the sense that every volume there's a bunch of things that they just have to invent or figure out to help each other, and that repeatedly happens, and then really it's just been going down the one story beat, essentially, where they're both building up their armies, the main protagonist and the antagonist, like in different parts of the world at this point. And the other character, who I thought was going to be pretty much the other main protagonist, like his childhood friend that he got encased in stone with at the first part, after like the second or third volume, like since he separated from him and even said, I'm sorry, but we're gonna have to separate now so I can get this part of it done. You kind of do your work over here and do what you have to do, and I'm gonna go off and do what I have to do. We haven't seen him in like the last like 4 volumes, so it was strange. Like I didn't think that, so that was kind of unexpected. I thought like, okay, we're gonna be following these two main characters, but then when he goes to the village, you meet a whole new cast of characters, and you've actually ended up spending more time with that cast of characters and Dr. Stone instead of the last one. And there's like another guy that's like is like science bro in that town, who had no like background of science like Dr. Stone does, so a lot of the things he just thinks like is almost like magic applications before he came around, and just things he used to go collect rocks and minerals and crystals and stuff like that, and just find out that things somehow can work together. Like he had no like he just happened to come across a lot of things and figure things out for himself by just trying shit out. Like he has nothing to apply it to. He has no base knowledge of science. So when Dr. Stone comes around, he almost like takes up this guy under him like as an apprentice of sorts. Like he shows him kind of the ropes and explains things to him, things that were up to this point he just thought it was fucking like, you know, like magic or voodoo or some shit like that, right? Because he has no, you know, they live in the Stone Age, so like people just found that guy amazing, that he can do anything with anything. But then when Dr. Stone comes around, he's like, no, this is why this works. This is why you can do this with this. This is like, you know, he just applied that knowledge to it. So yeah, very good. I'm definitely going to continue with it. I did really enjoy it. It's 7 volumes in right now. I think the 8th volume is going to be coming out soon. All right, next up we got Biomega. This is by Tsutsumo Naihi. I read the first 3 volumes of 6. I'd talked about one of his books, like, I don't know, probably like several episodes ago on this show, Blame, or Blam, I think it's pronounced. I thought it was Blame just because of the way it's spelled. And that was very strange and weird. This is one of those manga artists, like creators, that I've heard like a lot of his books are really hard to understand, but the artwork is gorgeous, and I completely agree. This is one of his older works, maybe one of his first works that maybe... not one of his first works, but I guess one of the more popular ones, that at least in the American market, and one of his smaller works, because it's only 6 volumes, and this came out from the Viz signature line when it was printed here in English, which again is like the more mature title kind of line. A lot of the manga I mostly read is from this line of books, and it's basically, when you boil it down to it, like its simplest way to explain this is like it's a zombie story, but it's like some crazy like wasteland landscape zombie story in the future, where like it's like almost like a virus kind of thing, instead of like the classic like zombies just going around biting people. And there's a talking bear character who's Russian and this and nothing can stop this guy on his bike. Like this guy just drives around on his bike and can basically do anything with his fucking bike. Like he ends up like shooting and killing lots of people and just zooming around this world like he's flying up in the air and jumping off objects. It's crazy. Like this guy, the main character in this, on his bike, he's like unstoppable. But the art is amazing, and I don't find it hard to follow. It is just strange and out there. There is very little dialogue. There's like some crazy like gothic type, like, I don't know, like they almost look like vampire type characters, but they're these guys that I guess work for some organization that's basically trying to like they basically like the first person that got affected by this, they were trying to track them down and use some of this, the one that can't be affected by this virus that's going on right now, like the zero patient or whatever the hell you want to call it, like that one that they basically got to trace back to the source as a way to maybe solve how to fix this virus, like somebody who's unaffected by it, and so basically the main protagonist here tries to scoop her up and take him back to some base, I guess they got set up where they can kind of run tests on her and figure out how to stop and fix this solution to this virus that's spreading and then making everybody into zombies. And then meanwhile, you got like the bad guys, this other like government agency or something that are working against what he's doing and trying to capture the girl and trying to get her for their own means, whatever that may be. And like I said, some of these things are further and better explained than what I'm doing right now. But yes, the narrative is a little bit difficult to figure out at times. It's mostly told through art. It's a lot of action. There's not a lot of dialogue. So yeah, I can see where someone could get confused. And even though I'm kind of trying to do my best to explain it right now, it's not always 100% clear to me, but I wouldn't say that I'm confused. I'm really just going along with the story, and I think it moves quickly at a fast enough clip for you to enjoy it and kind of get somewhat of a sense of what's happening without being like, what the fuck am I reading right here, right? Because I've had experiences like that. I definitely don't think this is that. And if this is one of his more condensed, like, smaller works, that may be the case why, whereas the other ones are all these kind of bigger epics, and maybe somewhere along the lines in those ones, it's a little harder to follow what's going on, because at its core, this is just basically like a virus zombie kind of spreading story with great action and art. And yeah, for some reason, there is one of the main characters is this like talking bear character who's like, I think, Russian or something, and that doesn't really make sense. I don't know. I don't know why there's a talking bear, but he's actually a pretty awesome character in this. So, you don't always need explanations for everything. I think this is just the world that he lives in, and like it's always like these crazy gothic like art, like crazy wasteland landscapes that he's drawing, and it feels like everything kind of takes place in the same world. If you read Blame, or Blam, I guess it's pronounced, by the same author, I feel like it feels like it's in the same kind of place as that was. Like, it just kind of like the art itself definitely gives you that feel, but then also just like the post-apocalyptic, like kind of grim future that this artist likes depicting is similar in theme in these two books that I've read by him. And I picked up another book by him, that Bera one that came out in hardcover that I'm looking forward to reading as well. Haven't gotten to it yet, but yeah, I really, really like this guy's stuff. I think the art is definitely the biggest draw here. But I mean, I can only compare it to the other one I've read, that Blam one I've read by him. I definitely think if you've never read his work, though, I think the Biomega is a better place to start, because that Blam one was really hard to wrap my head around when I first read it, and this has got me more interested in checking out more, because I really enjoyed this so far. So I'll be reading the other 3 volumes at some point in the future, so I might end up talking about that here on again, and letting you guys know how that ended. So yeah, that's Biomega, very good. And then last but not least, we got Dead Demons Dedede Destruction by Niko Asano, the most awesome name ever for a book. Very strange. I read volumes 1 to 6 of this, and I ended up just getting 7 not too long ago. I haven't read that yet. I'm just a few pages into it, so I'm looking forward to that. This was good. Another person's work that I'm kind of more new to is this Niko Asano guy. I read a Goodnight Pun book, got a lot of praise, so I ended up picking up a few of the volumes of that. I read the first 2 of that, and then I ended up reading his Solanin book, which I may or may not have talked about on this show. I can't recall, but that's really good. That's my favorite thing I've read of his so far, but that's like a trope that I really enjoy. Like, that's a story kind of I always really love, is that it's a coming-of-age story about a younger girl, and it seems like he likes telling those kind of stories with younger characters, like just, around that point where they're in school or about to finish school or have just finished school and trying to figure out what they're going to do with their lives and that kind of thing, and I really like that. And this is similar because it follows like a group of girls like in school that are basically one of them's already in the workforce, and then most of the other ones are basically finishing school or getting to that point where they're going to be finishing school in their lives, and that's how this kind of started out. Same thing like Dr. Stone I said earlier, this takes a couple of volumes to really get into, and the nice thing about manga though usually is if you're buying these for retail price or even at a sale price, they're usually about $10 to $13 usually for these volumes, so you can afford to pick up a couple of these, because sometimes if you read like a Marvel graphic novel, like those ones could be like $20, $25 depending on the size of them that you're getting. So this is, you can afford to pick up a couple of volumes of something like this to kind of really get the ball rolling and seeing if you like what's going on in this. So yeah, this is kind of Goodnight Pun. His other book that I read is very depressing, and I've heard like by the end of the series, like it's like the most depressing book like ever. So I don't know how much I'm looking forward to that, but like I heard like it's really, really well done, so I'm gonna continue reading it. I have the other volumes, but I've only read the first 2 so far. But this one I would say is kind of a little bit of the Solanin thing, the themes that I liked in Solanin with the coming of age type stuff. But at the same time, it's got like this other kind of side story about these aliens that are basically have like this ship that's hovering above Earth, and then it's almost like he's talking, like the author is using it to, like it's almost like some social commentary, I guess, about, because there's a lot in this book about Japan and America. Like he even depicts Trump a couple times through this book and what's going on and how like the Americans see Japan and vice versa. And then as well as, because there's a lot of real world themes in this, but then there's also like the thing about at the start of the book, there's just like this big alien ship, I guess, that came to Earth, and it's like hovering above Japan for whatever reason. This is where and people are just going on their everyday lives, just trying to like almost like go to school and go to their jobs, and like almost like it's like they try to act. You know, life doesn't end just because there's this alien ship there, right? And but it's not like the aliens are trying to destroy them or kill them or anything at first. It's just literally just sitting there, and then over time, weird things start happening. Like the aliens are really weird looking. Like they're like these like little things that are like the size of like kids, like I don't know, like 4 or 5 year old kids, and they're like just like a big eyeball almost. Like they just got like a fish tank kind of head on them, and then they're just like these big kind of eyeball things that are just running around, and they usually are in big groups when you see them in this book, because there's a bunch of scenes as the series goes on where you see the army attacking these things, and these things are like harmless, like they're defenseless against humans, so like they end up like just shooting the shit out of these things when they see them, like because there's a whole, and then there's all these like groups of people on Earth that are there's like groups that are with like for the aliens, like living and for the relationship between humans and aliens, they're for it, but then there's a group of other people that are against it, where they're like fuck these aliens kind of thing. And then I don't know if he's trying to make some sort of commentary on like racism or something. I don't know. Like it must be deeper than what it is, because it seems like too weird of like a story structure for him to kind of not be commenting on something else, especially with the politics kind of that are in the book as well. But like as you go on in the book, you can't really peg it down on one theme or one kind of direction or what he's trying to do here. It's just the journey itself is interesting. So like every volume has been really different, and as soon as they start involving the aliens more, because they don't even really involve the aliens within like the first 2 or 3 volumes, it's strange. And then like you start seeing them a little bit more, and then like one of the aliens comes and disguises himself as a human and ends up hanging out and being one of the friends with these group of girls, the high school girls. But then you get into like the mistreatment of the aliens, and how like, and then you get into like, they show this scene with like an army guy, and how like he just kind of killed it because he got given the orders that he had to kill the aliens, but he killed one of them, like they were all screaming for each other, and like it was like a mother with her child kind of thing, and he had to kill one of these aliens, and he just like, it was the order that was given to him, and he didn't really want to. So then it was about like the thought process like that was going in the mind of this soldier, and then he kind of had like PTSD from it. So like it's all these, that's what I mean. Like I don't know if he's using this to talk about the war that's going on with the states and like other countries, or like just like society in general. He's definitely using a lot of these things though to comment, I'm sure, on real world type stuff, because why then put Trump in it? Why even bother to put, if this is just some fantastical story about aliens, and unless he's using the generalized word aliens, I guess, for like, immigrants or something like that, like people that are not from the States, like, but it's in Japan mostly that this stuff's taking place. So, it's just really interesting. I'm having a hard time describing it, because it's a lot going on here, and each volume it got more and more interesting as you go. So it's just like this slow type of build, and I'm really liking it. I mean, the art's really great. He's a great artist, Inio Asano, and it's and each volume opens up with like the few color pages that you normally get in one of these manga volumes, and it's like this guy called Isoya Bean, I think it's how you pronounce it. And like it's showing you like these cartoons like of a manga that that exists in this world of these characters. If it's like some guy with like a mushroom head, and he kind of looks like a like, I don't know, like, yeah, he's like a mushroom man, and he's like an animated kind of character, but it's a manga that exists in this world. So every volume opens up with like a few pages in color of the main character reading this manga. Like, you're basically in this other manga at first, and then it pans away and you see one of the characters reading this popular manga in their world, and then from there it kind of goes into the main story, because he's kind of referenced throughout this as well, like this popular manga series. And then there's also like another side story where it kind of tells you about like these guys that are trying to develop like a new video game, or yeah, that's the other thing. There's got the young girls, they play like a Call of Duty type game online, like something is similar to that, where it's basically them going around killing people as army people. So you know what I mean? Like, it's like also like, again, he's commenting on something about like how, like, I guess people's minds are, there's so many people playing video games that are violent and stuff like that these days, and it's almost like they're trying to set you up to have those go out into the world and have those kind of thoughts, or like, you know what I mean, like, or look at the world a certain way. And I don't know, it's really interesting. But and then there's these other guys trying to develop a video game, but then they're trying to popularize this thing, and they say that their characters are too over sexualized and all this, and then they can't. And then it's following the story of like these young video game developer guys as well. Everyone's kind of connected somehow that lives in this town. Like, one's either the brother or sister of this person, or girlfriend of that person, and so it's kind of, the focus is definitely shifting a lot in this, from like the aliens to the politics to the young girls to like society to, yeah, it's very interesting. It's got layers, and it is difficult to talk about, at least for me. So I can tell right now. So I hope I'm doing, not doing a disservice to the material here, but I definitely think it's worth checking out, because this is one of those interesting manga creators I've heard about for a while. I'm more newer to his work, and it's hard to peg down. It's definitely something different and interesting than what most other popularized manga is doing these days, at least from stuff that I've read. Like, this isn't a Shonen Jump type manga. This isn't like, your formulaic guys fighting each other type shit. This is like an interesting creator doing interesting work and trying to tell different type of stories. All right, so that's it for today, guys. Check back next week, where I'll be talking about more scary horror type books for the Halloween week. I've already read one this week, so and that's going to be actually also a manga. There might also be another couple of horror manga that pop up on that show next week as well, but also some Western comics I'm looking forward to checking out. So I'll see you guys next time.